Our top story today, the leaks just keep coming. This time, it's being dubbed Cablegate, as more than 250,000 classified cables from U.S. embassies all around the world have been revealed to the public. Now, authorities are conducting an intensive criminal investigation. WikiLeaks.org is responsible for the release. It is the world's largest leak of classified information of this nature. And the Director of External Communications for the Center for Advanced Defense Studies, Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Schaefer, is here. He is no stranger to the DoD trying to suppress information that he tried to release in his book. You see it right there, Operation Dark Heart. Even though, get this, the information in the book was about 6 to 10 years old. Thank you so much for being here. So many questions for you. You know, you seem to be pretty supportive of the first WikiLeaks releases, but you say this time they've gone too far. This has crossed the line. What's the difference this time around?
Well, I think there's two pieces which clearly distinguish this release from the last. The last two really had to do with information that filled in the gaps. It's like the puzzle pieces were all there. He was just kind of coloring in. There was nothing new. The Afghan release revealed that the Pakistanis were sitting the fence. The ISI was supporting the Taliban. We kind of already knew this. This is in my book as well. For the Iraq release, we're talking about human rights issues, which we knew were an issue, that we weren't maybe as diligent as we could have been. All information which I think added to the public debate in some aspect or another. With that said, in this case, I believe that there was a great deal of good information which came out regarding issues the American public needed to know. There was some skullduggery. Some of this stuff was essentially, as I've talked about in other networks, like watching sausage being made. People who like sausage probably don't want to see how it's being made, and that's what we did here. There was lines crossed, though. And here's where the lines are crossed. We're talking about, in some instances, relationships between the United States and foreign countries which have not only been soured, may have a net very bad effect on the war on terror. And I cite for you Yemen, relating to the fact that apparently, according to if the cables are to be believed, we're the ones doing the shooting, the Yemeni government being the ones taking the credit for it. Clearly, there's a perception, at least, that the president of Yemen has been lying to his own people. That creates a problem. Same with Pakistan. Pakistan, as much as we've already known that there are bad actors there, there's problems with the nuclear system, now essentially this is shoved in their face, that reality, and there's been surveys which have been very clearly proven to say that the Pakistani people don't like the United States, and here the Pakistani government's cooperating with us. So the net effect may be to have those governments fall, and in the end, long-term consequences may relate to people being killed and people dying by the fact that things that could have been prevented are not prevented, and governments which could have cooperated with us will not cooperate with us. So I think that's where the line was crossed in this case.
So you're saying, unlike previous releases, here you do have that aha moment. You do have a takeaway.
Right.
What was it about your book that the DoD didn't like? Because as I understand it, you know, your book is probably more famous for the lengths at which the DoD went to try to stop it, to try to censor it, than the actual content.
And that's sad because it's great content. People have started reading it for the content, and I actually have a path to victory. I think the reason that they reacted badly to my book was because of the fact I connect the dots. The previous releases of WikiLeaks was kind of like throwing this information against the wall, seeing what stuck. My book makes a compelling case for what went wrong, when it went wrong, and I think bad news tends to take on a life of its own. As you pointed out, the information in my book is no newer than 6 years old. In some cases, goes back 10 years, and the issue has to do more with embarrassment than it does with real sensitive information. The DoD has a problem. This is the problem. They weigh the information in my book and what merit they give it to this release. And I think anyone in the public domain is going to say, how can that be true? How can you treat both of these things as secret information? This has been a problem of overclassification. DoD has had a very bad record, frankly, the U.S. government, of trying to determine what is really classified, what needs to be protected, versus what should be disclosed, and allow the public to see what's going on without regard to the potential embarrassment of that information.
And that creates such a backlog.
It does. And I think by the fact they've not created the right policies for information which is embarrassing, the net effect is that people like Julian Assange and WikiLeaks gains ground and are listened to by the fact that there's no way to have bad information come out without some level of retribution against whoever brings it out.
Let's talk about reaction here in the United States.
Right.
Congressman Peter King asked Attorney General Eric Holder to take quick action to prosecute Julian Assange, look into WikiLeaks. He also asked Secretary of State Hillary Clinton to, quote, declare WikiLeaks a foreign terrorist organization. Is this going a little bit too far, or is this kind of reaction warranted? What do you think?
Well, I think this was clearly, from my judgment, and I talked to our Center Director about this today, this was clearly an information operations attack. It's called information warfare. The idea here was not for accountability, as far as I can tell. I don't see anything within the current release which calls for an investigation by any oversight organization such as Human Rights Watch or Amnesty International. That's what the ostensible reason was for some of these previous releases, to have people looked at for bad acts. In this case, you see the U.S. government doing what any government does. It looks at the interests of the United States by talking to folks, by doing things which in some cases are distasteful, but they happen by every country. So I think this is where there's a departure here, and this is why there's a call for this very harsh rebuke of Mr. Assange.
But even Lieberman is saying he's kind of uneasy about it. He's saying probably not. This is no Al-Qaeda, but we will look into it. We will try to work together, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, on this issue. But again, you know, labeling this a foreign terrorist organization.
My senator does not. Yeah, we've talked about that.
King said that he has a lot of support. You know.
Well, he may well, and I think that there is some support for accountability here, and this is the issue. As far as I know, I'm not an attorney, but I've studied this a bit. There's no law that we can cite which would allow us to arrest Mr. Assange for espionage. The espionage was conducted by someone else, possibly by PFC Manning. We don't know that Manning is the ostensible potential source.
Speaking of him, you know, he seems to be the only face that the public has
so far.
So far, right? To sort of label him as, you know, here's the guy. Here's the guy. I mean, do you think that's even possible? I mean,
it is possible.
How many documents, and what does that say, if that is possible, what does that say about the system that's in place?
The system needs to be looked at. Anybody who has a secret clearance within the U.S. government, and literally there are probably close to tens of thousands, if not millions of folks who have a secret clearance. You are eligible with a secret clearance to have access to the SIPRNet, which is the system we're talking about here.